You're with Clement Manyathela.
702.
All right, let's now change tack and focus on the taxi industry. There are a number of you that have contacted us asking that we bring in the taxi industry to have a conversation about a number of issues we've spoken about even before on the show. So we've invited the National Taxi Alliance following your requests. So this whole hour, we are going to be talking to them about issues that have concerned some of you, in the taxi industry, whether it's the taxi violence, the driver's behavior on the roads, the harassment on motorists who hitchhike, issues around taxes, the issues of formalizing the taxi industry, you name it. So if you want to join this conversation, you've got some questions, any inputs, you can call us on 011-883-0702. Alternatively, you can send us a WhatsApp on 072-702-1702. Theo Malele is a member of the executive at the National Taxi Alliance, joining us in studio. Theo, thank you so much for making time for us. Good morning.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
I want to start off with perhaps something that happened yesterday in Soweto, because there are now concerns over whether or not we're seeing a resurgence of taxi violence. Are you aware of what happened in Soweto? What information are you able to share with us?
Yes, we learned as we marched yesterday into the day's activities that there were 3 members of one of our affiliates that had been gunned down by some heavy artillery, and the alleged perpetrators of this heinous crime were still on the run, and law enforcement agencies were actually in trying to get hold of them.
Sure. Why do you think, Theo, that this is how matters are resolved in the taxi industry? Because when there are disagreements, whether it's even disagreements with buses or issues around trains, there's often violence that emerges. It's almost like this is an unspoken rule of how things are resolved.
Very true. I mean, the rules of engagements are such that, at some point you need to agree to disagree, and you end up finding solutions to the problems. I mean, no problem, can be unsurmountable. I mean, this country's problems rather were resolved, using a dialogue. So this actually showed us as people that the only best way of resolving our differences can be, utilizing dialogue, because what currently is gripping the country is unacceptable, and it does not even serve the purpose, because at the end of it all, they will still have to come back, sit down, and discuss a way forward. So there is no way that this, acts of violence would not beget other acts of violence. So it is just...
There's going to be a retaliation.
There's going to be a retaliation, It's going to be a retaliation. And it's just unfortunate that the industry is being characterized by this cloud of violence. And this has been happening from days in memoriam. Yeah. And this really seeks serious intervention. And if you begin to try and, put your finger on the pulse as to what is this that is actually causing these people to get to such high tempers, one realizes that, we all come from different backgrounds with different understandings and levels of understandings, for that matter. You actually realize that when you engage people in some serious, subject matter, and you see people nodding as if they actually are following suit with this that you are articulating, and only to realize that no, you've always been talking to yourself, and a lot of these people are actually lost in the mist, but they lack the courage to come out of their cocoons and say that we don't understand what's been said. I think people are kind of like afraid to ask questions, maybe thinking that they will be taken as fools. But the mere fact that they don't ask those questions, they then, go out and act in a barbaric way.
So when you talk about an intervention that's needed, what kind of intervention? Because we've had the taxi violence summits. There've been interventions even from the side of government. So what else can be done? Because I'm just running out of ideas here of what could help really stem out this violence in the industry.
Yeah, Clement, I think we lost a golden opportunity. In 2019, the then MEC of Transport in Gauteng in particular, Mr. Jacob Mamabolo, had shown a great appetite of wanting to help the industry to get out of its doldrums. So, through our engagement, we had resolved in one of the discussions that we had at the time as an industry. Now, when I say as an industry, I mean this is Santaco and the National Taxi Alliance in one room and tackling issues as an industry. And that actually gave us an understanding that in the Gauteng province, the taxi industry needs to work, close together. We need to stop, pointing fingers and, separating one from the other. So that then helped us to come to an understanding that we needed, to come up with, resolutions that would bring about the necessary changes in the taxi industry. And one such came out of a commission commission that was, conducted by the taxi industry itself on taxi violence. One of its recommendations was that the government should assist the industry to appoint a retired judge to help look into, this aspect of violence because it was now becoming endemic. So the Jeremiah Shongwe was the judge that was appointed to conduct this investigation. And, amongst others that he had revealed to be of concern was that, the firearms that were used mostly were state-issued, firearms. And
probably stolen maybe by the
probably stolen or something.
Yeah.
And also that some of the processes that were undertaken in the issuance of operating licenses, left a lot to be desired. In that, if one were to paint a scenario, if you go and do your application of an operating license, your application will actually have to go through in excess of 26 people that will have to process this.
These people in government.
These people in government.
This is when you want to operate to.
This is when you want to operate legally,
Okay.
And what then happens in this process is that there aren't sufficient, quality checks, so that we are able to nail those that are found with their hands in the cookie jar. And as a result, people can twist and turn things that will end up causing what we are currently facing today. We were also tasked to do a thorough investigation, and I so happen to have been part of the team that was given this task. We investigated this, we took a deep dive into it, and then realized that the issuance, rather, let me say, the operation in question in Soweto, WATA has been operating this since 1972, and there hasn't been any, hindrances ever since then. So all these fracas came into effect in the democratic dispensation because of the, licensing of the route, which was fraudulently done. Now, the said route was found to have been issued on a date of a weekend. So it happened on a weekend, meaning this is null and void. So we then pointed this out to the authorities, who then said that they were going to take decisive action. But that decisive action, we are not so certain as to whether it did, be that effective.
Okay, let me clarify, Bra Theo. So are you saying that there are some people even in government, who issue out licenses that are fraudulent and not in line with the law to some of the taxi associations. And that's why you would end up fighting among each other, because you've got a license, you've been operating since a long time ago. And then here's someone else who says, well, I also have a permit to operate here, but it's actually fraudulent.
You've just nailed it, my brother. That's exactly what I'm saying.
So, which is it? Is it the transport department that's responsible for approving these licenses?
Obviously, yes. Obviously, it's within that department. The current MEC has actually realized that indeed there was this kind of a problem. But you see, when I spoke about an intervention earlier on that is needed, was that authorities could have looked into the recommendations that came out of Jeremiah Shongwa's report and made, effected those resolutions to make sure that this issue of violence is nipped in the bud. So this tells you that there are enforcement or law enforcement authorities, perhaps, that are actually enjoying something out of this. And one of the other recommendations that came out of the taxi industry was that there needed to be a lifestyle audit on people that work on the issuance of operating licenses and the taxi violence and stuff like that. And none of that has actually been done. So you ask yourself as to why is that?
Yeah, there's no political will.
Exactly. And on the other hand, you are then as an industry told that to go out there and sort out your mess. How do you sort out something that you did not create? It's a no-brainer.
Sure. So help us understand here. How many associations can operate in a particular area or route? Can you have more than one? Or like if, for instance, as the National Taxi Alliance, if you have a license to operate in this part of Soweto, is it only you, or there can be maybe a license given to another taxi association?
No, look, in all earnest, licenses are issued as per the geographical landscape within which you operate on. So you have been given a license to operate within that specific geographic area.
But can someone join you there who's not?
Somebody can join. They can actually go past perhaps, that route.
Yeah.
You can utilize that route as many as you possibly would be. But the understanding should be that who is the main person that is dealing with a geographic space, in terms of loading and offloading.
Okay.
And perhaps these other operators may also have an opportunity just to offload, but not load. Yeah.
Okay, got
But
it.
this is when, some of these misdemeanors take place.
Yeah, sure. Conversation with Theo Malele, who's a member of the executive at the National Taxi Alliance. What questions do you have? We've just touched on the taxi violence. We'll touch on the harassment that some of you have complained about, especially when you are giving hitchhikers a lift. We'll talk about the formalization of the taxi industry. Some of you have raised concerns about taxes, whether they pay taxes or not. I'll get Theo to respond to that.
702.
The Clement Manyathela Show.
Let's walk the talk.
24 minutes before 11 o'clock. We're having a broader conversation with the National Taxi Alliance. Theo Malele is the member of the executive at the National Taxi Alliance. I want to take your calls as well on 011-883-0702. WhatsApp's on 072-702-1702. I'll get to them in a minute. One issue, Theo, that some of the listeners have raised a lot in as far as the taxi industry is concerned is the incidences we've seen of taxi associations stopping people who have given a lift on the road to those that are hitchhiking. In fact, the Sowetan at some point was reporting that taxi bosses were saying that they're losing business because of hitchhikers. As the National Taxi Alliance, what's your position of that? Because there are a lot of motorists who feel harassed by some of the taxi drivers or the patrollers, because there's these vehicles now that patrol on behalf of some of the taxi associations. And when they give someone a lift, they just get harassed. Sometimes they even take your car keys, which is crazy.
Yeah, that's a very unfortunate, part. On our side as an industry, I must concede that, we we are not the best when it comes to behavior on the road. But then there are also incidences where some of these idiotic acts are justified. What I mean by then is that, I at some point tried to do a research, going through most of the, malls in the townships, to see precisely what is this that was happening after, there were allegations that the taxi industry was busy harassing people in their private vehicles and in trying to promote the taxi industry's, partner with Shesha, which is our e-hailing wing. What I discovered there was that not only were, e-hailers prevalent at the malls, but you also had scouters who were going about looking for people who were carrying too many, groceries in their hands, and they will go and ask if they were in need of transport. Obviously, these people, unsuspectingly so, they will say, yes, my son, we're looking for transport, we're carrying too heavy in our hands, and they will be shown to a car, a sedan, which didn't even have, proper, licensing to do that kind of a business. And this was at the height of, the e-hailing, which also was found not to have been a legal operation that has been in the country for now 14 years. And yet authorities did nothing about it, and it has actually begun to encroach into the market share of the taxi industry. So obviously this then shrinks, the ridership rather drops, and that then becomes a cause for concern, because this industry is not even being, even though it's a majority public transport mover, it's not even being supported by way of a subsidy by government. So that puts a lot of pressure on people. But this does not mean that the acts of violence should be the only way to resolve such differences. And at some point, I also realized that some of the e-hailing drivers were picking up passengers near the taxi ranks. And this also, nauseated the taxi operators to say, why is it that now you guys come here and start collecting people where we are working? So that caused problems.
But what about the Gautrain stations?
Well, the Gauteng stations, it is incorrect. It is sheer thuggery if people would go out there and do this. Now, you also ask yourself a question as to why is it that law enforcement agencies are not taking decisive action when such acts, are actually happening on the roads. We do not condone that as the National Taxi Alliance. We've never sat in a meeting where such acts were actually discussed. So in most cases where people were found to be on the wrong side of the law, we've always encouraged the law to take its rightful course. You'll remember also with the rape cases in the Dobsonville area, we help authorities to apprehend the would-be killers and the rapers of all those people. So the National
what
Taxi
should
Alliance.
our motorists, people listening to us now, when they are giving someone a lift and they get harassed, what would you advise them to do?
Well, obviously they should report this matter to the authorities. This is just unbecoming. You cannot be, bullied not to get into a particular vehicle in favor of the other.
Don't you guys have a hotline as a taxi?
Yeah, well, we do, which is 0800 113322.
So if they call it and say, I'm with someone here who is part of the association, they're harassing me, what do you do about it?
But they need to give us details of what is happening. Remember, they would be telling this to us in the office. So now we need to establish the location where this is taking place.
Okay.
And if possible, they should try and look at the sticker of the vehicle that should depict the name of the association from where this vehicle comes from.
So there's a question, in fact, is it a question, is it a comment that's often being made when we have conversations about the taxi industry, about taxes and whether or not there's a need for the industry to be formalized so you can pay taxes. Can you just clarify that for us? Maybe let's start here. I don't know if you know, how much does the taxi industry just generate annually, just in turnover?
Just in turnover, it's about 9 billion rand.
9 billion rand. Just the whole industry.
Which is the whole industry.
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
Taxes? Do you pay taxes?
No. It is a lot of money from a layman's point of view. But if you walk in the shoes of the taxi operators, you will realize that it is insufficient in this sense. You know, the repayment of a vehicle is around 18,000 rand today. And a vehicle does about between 600 rands on a daily basis. And let's work on a 25 days month. You know, that amount of money would not suffice even to pay back for that, installment, which is why you also, notice that a lot of taxis get repossessed because, for failure to meet, the monthly financial obligations. So, and the other, issue is that we pay variable taxes. When we buy vehicles, we get charged taxes like everybody else. Buying fuel, buying spares, we pay for taxes. But what we also were told, unless if we are incorrect, that if you generate a net of over 300,000 per annum, only then do you attract an income tax. But, the issues of tax can best be left with the taxman to deal with individual taxi operators, because when you apply for an operating license, one of the prerequisites is that you need to show a tax compliance certificate, which is issued by SARS. So obviously SARS would not issue a certificate to a non-compliant person and allege that this person is compliant. So it's just that people are short-sighted. They don't have, the inside information.
So you pay taxes through when you buy the vehicles, but your drivers as well who get paid?
Our drivers as well who get paid. Look, our drivers who get paid, we haven't crossed this line of meeting the labor law requirements to actually, we actually even to an extent pay more than what the labor department would, require us to do.
In terms of the requirement for this is the amount that you can pay lower than this.
Yes.
Forgetting the name, yeah.
So we're paying
minimum wage, yeah.
We're paying 1,000, more than the minimum wage. We're paying 1,000 rands a week plus. And you must also understand that there is a shrinkage that also takes place, and the University of Johannesburg a few years ago also came out with an empirical evidence that proves that 40% of what should come to the taxi operators actually stays with the taxi drivers. But let me share with you what I did with my team just last year. We did a study between Olivenhout-Bosch and the Mall of Africa through the help of Amsterdam Taxi Association, where we were piloting an electronic fare collection system. So normally, the funds were between 500 and 600 rands that were collected by operators on a daily basis. But what we found out was that at some point, one owner got 2,500 rands for the same route on this, for a day. The list only got 1,500, but we could also justify why this person only got 1,005 is because they had not given the driver a vehicle with a full tank of fuel. So this one that ended at 2,500 rand had actually made sure that before the vehicle goes out to the ranking facilities, it's actually filled. So a lot of money gets lost there. So we need to get up, tight with that.
What about banking? There's a lot of money you guys make, and does it get banked?
Look, it has to be banked, because even the retailers, vehicle retailers, would want you to give them your 3 months bank statement before they can, sell your vehicles. So just to look at your history in terms of transactions and your income.
Okay, Maz, let's go to some calls now. I'm going to ask you to please put on your headphones.
Sure.
011-883-0702. WhatsApp's on 072-702-1702. Let's start with you, Maz, in Diepkloof. Good morning.
Clement, good morning to both of you. It pains me to listen to what's happening in the taxi industry. I mean, he is complaining about how much they're charged. In the meanwhile, they have not decided, or rather, Santago went and gave R250 million to Capital Taxi Finance Corporation, which was the organization that is charging them extraordinarily high interest rates. They have not bothered to organize themselves, with 9 billion rand. I mean, if you were to ask Saab how much does it cost to have a commercial banking license, they'll tell you they need deposits of close to, I think the last time I heard was 300 million rand. He's talking 9 billion rand. So, Taxi Association I don't know why government just doesn't take over and say, listen, yeah, this is the way to go, because these guys simply do not want to organize themselves and create a legacy for themselves instead of shooting each other all the time for different routes.
Yeah, got it. Maz in Diepkloof, thank you. Mpo, you are in Johannesburg. Good morning.
Morning, Clement. How are you?
Shop. Go ahead.
Good. Clement, that was saying that if you make under 300,000, you don't have to file for income tax. Clement, a reason why a lot of owners are paying exorbitant interest rates is because they're all applying for these vehicles under their personal names. You find an individual who's got 10 taxis, all financed under his name, including his personal cars, and then complain to say that they are being charged exorbitant interest rates. Of course, you will and finance your cars via fleet. Hence, why you will not have an issue with trade and around everything under your name. Your 10 cars.
Yeah, Mpos, I'm sorry, man. Your line is dropping there, but I think I got the question. I'll repeat it to Brother Theo to respond to it. Lucky, you are in Pimville, Soweto. Go ahead. Hi.
Hi, Clement. Thank you for taking this call, Papa. With the taxi industry now, they are harassing us, especially, with the pensioners. Where they make the drop-offs, have a drop of the pensioner. They say, no, they must not be dropped right in the mall, in front of the mall. You have to walk a long distance. We regard your grocery and come up carrying those heavy parcels, to the end. Yeah, no, that's, we find
Is this when you use e-hailing, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, and again, another one is, they stopped us last time we were going to Limpopo. One of that long distance, there's a family traveling that side. Wow, they take your car keys, they'll harass you, wait there for more than an hour. So we find that it's not fair with the taxi industry. Over.
Yeah, no, I got it, bro. Lucky, thank you so much for your call. Theo, Lucky, the first call we got from Lucky now says they can't be dropped at malls inside because then some of the taxi associations will argue that, but this is our territory. But if someone is using an e-hailing, now they must be stopped too far and walk in, especially these pensioners.
No. I think that is not correct. If people experience such acts, they should actually bring these to our attention. Look, there are demarcated areas for e-hailing vehicles at these malls. So this is where these people can be dropped off. So there is no one that is sanctioned, from the leadership's point of view, that there be this kind of, interventions from the squad people. That is just not right. And they should actually give us who these people are so that we can then pass this message on that such behaviors have to be corrected.
All right. Maz was asking about the need to organize yourselves. Has there ever been a consideration for government to just take over, regulate?
Yeah. Look, there has been trials to try and convince the taxi industry into corporatizing itself. And the leadership has always welcomed this. This was done by the then MEC of Transport, Jacobs, who's passed on. May his soul rest in peace. He had initiated that there be, the professionalization of the taxi industry. That faded away. And when we were with Jacob Mamabolo, the MEC, just recently, he also spoke about that. But we've also not, spared the current MEC. We've asked her to please look at the resolutions that we took with Jacob Mamabolo so that we bring those onto the fore and look into the aspect of the corporatization of the taxi industry for it to be professionalized. So we are for that idea, but we are saying come in, help us understand to a much greater, degree this that you want us, to do.
Mpo was asking about why are taxis not registered under a business or a business.
Look, this has been, short-sightedness on our side that this had not taken place. But safe to say, it is currently being trialed. We have begun this. I was in Pretoria yesterday, where Toyota delivered about 20 vehicles to an association. So we want to see if this model would actually help, because doing it as individuals, attracts a lot of problems for the industry. So yes, it is a brilliant idea, and we are looking into this, and we've already begun.
But why is it that the taxis, when they are purchased, they're never owned by a business?
Look,
what is the reason?
It has always been the culture that these are my vehicles. So if I buy vehicles, our culture as well would say you need to take them home, to go and say, or should I put it so to what let's
talk business. And say these are my vehicles from my business.
Exactly. So we need to change the mindset of operators for them to begin to appreciate that if they bought this through a company, they would get a lot of concessions, even fleet discounts, and even their HPs will not be as exorbitant as they are.
Okay. Someone is asking about taxi fares. Why is it that when taxi fares go up, they never go down?
Well, the same applies to the price of bread. When that happens, the price of bread goes up. But when the fuel price drops, the price of bread will never drop. But nobody will actually ask about that. And not only bread, but a lot of other commodities, will follow suit.
Good morning, Clement and the listeners. With the taxi industry, please ask your visitor there why the passengers should be their kids or their subjects. Because in this democratic country, they want to rule us. They want to tell us what to take. We have to take their taxis in force. They are stopping the buses. The buses are cheap. And the buses, they take you from where you start till the end where you are going. And then with the taxis, you going to Pretoria, you have to take 3 taxis coming from Soweto. That's not fair. That's not fair. And when the government wants to come in, they want to be involved. They want to threaten people, want to kill people around so that we fear them. Please ask them, why are they doing this in a democratic country? Thank you, Clement. Anonymous.
Good morning, Clement. The issue of tax industry, the government needs to take a firm decision to regulate this industry. So as long as the government is not taking firm decision, this industry will be run like this. And then also number 2, this issue of malls, because there is this thing of demarcation. Sometimes it disturbs a lot. And then also point number 3, the association, they need to come together and work together, because the population is busy expanding a lot. That needs a lot of transport. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Just last question, Theo, was around our trains. When our trains start running effectively again, I mean, there will be a shrink, whether you like it or not, in the number of people who use your taxis. Are you guys ready for that, to avoid a scenario where now we start seeing infrastructure being interfered with, and then the accusations are that it's the taxi industry because they don't want the trains to be effective, because take away their customers.
Sure. Look, let's look at it in this fashion. To say the playing field in the public transport space has to be leveled. Currently, there is segregation. There are other modes that are favored against. The industry basically is treated as a stepchild of the public transport sector, because it is not getting, even though it moves the majority of people, but it gets the least of support. That in itself is a problem. So that needs to be corrected, as you, in your articulacy earlier on, so that there needs to be a political will for us to do that. So the solution, even to the other problem that a caller spoke of, we need to have an integrated transport system, because whether we like it or not, the buses may not necessarily reach some of the areas within the townships. So you still need to have a mode of transport that will bring people out of the deeper parts.
So you want to be subsidized?
Look, it goes without saying.
Okay.
It goes without saying.
Yeah, Prathia, I'm out of time. Thank you so much for making time. We should bring you back in studio, because there's a lot more things that I really wanted us to talk about, but it's important that we keep having these conversations with the Taxi Alliance. Thank you so much for making time for us.
No, you're more than welcome. I'm ready for you at any given day.
All right, 1 minute before 11.